Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the podcast and welcome Ryan from Forged in the North. I mean, we've been yapping before this. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm like, we've already discussed it, but just surviving the cold, trying to stay warm, all of the things. But for those that don't know you yet, would you mind giving us an intro on you and your studio?
So as you said, my name's Ryan. I'm co-owner of Forge in the North with my wife Heidi, and we started the studio about 11 years ago now, back in 2014. We had been shooting for about 4 or 5 years prior to that under a different brand, and then we rebranded, and maybe we'll dive into that a little bit. But um, we are a photo video studio. So Heidi and I both shoot photo and video, and then we have some other photographers and videographers on our team. And we mostly shoot out of the New York area, although a lot of our kind of branding and early career was a lot of travel work. So yeah, it's been a journey, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's okay. So I know we were literally right before I hit record, we were talking about how you guys met in Chicago and Heidi was getting her master's here, you said? Was that right?
We both met in architecture school. So that is
Oh.
our sort of formal training is in design and architecture. We both worked as architects in New York City for a little bit. Um, we kind of got like I bought a camera right out of school just because I thought, well, if I'm going to be an architect, like maybe I should have a camera and maybe I should like start documenting what I'm doing. And there's just sort of a little fascination with it. I graduated in 2009, which was like right after the crash, the worst time to be an architect. Everyone was like letting go of half their firms. So when I had this camera, I was like, well, I might as well learn this. And I just started shooting like anything I could. Um, Kind of around that same time, like someone was like, a colleague was like, or sorry, a classmate was recently engaged. So like, you have a camera, I know you could shoot our engagement photos, which is really funny to think back on now.
So
And
trusting.
yeah, so trusting. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess that's how it works. But obviously, there's a little more to it than that. But it was really fun, and it kind of got me hooked. And then like right after that, it was pretty much like, Heidi, you need to buy a camera. Maybe start getting into this. Maybe we could do this together. She dove in head first, and we kind of just started shooting photo and video from like our very first weddings together, as a duo, both shooting both photo and video. Um, and it wasn't until maybe a couple years after where the wedding work picked up and some other commercial work was there's opportunities with that as well. And we jumped off the cliff and kind of have never looked back. Like I mean, at the moment, obviously, it was very scary leaving like a full-time job and also leaving our our identity as architects
Mhm.
behind, but it was the best decision we ever made. I mean, we're so happy that we did that, and yeah, we got to travel a lot, be our own bosses, control our time, all those things in our 20s, and that was like just an amazing experience. So we're very, yeah, thankful for that.
That is, the architecture was so out of left field. I like didn't expect that. Like, I always love hearing about like photographers and videographers as well that like did go to school and get their degrees in something just so adjacent
Yeah.
to what they're doing now. Like, I'm like, that's so cool, so wild. What were like the first couple years like? Like, I know you're mentioning you're traveling a lot. That was also like, I'm like, so that was how many years ago? Like 15?
Yeah, so we set like fifth. We've been shooting like our first wedding was 15 years ago.
Okay.
So obviously the first year, second year, we were still working. And you're not sure, it's not like a busy, jam-packed season. Like these are just the first weddings we're getting, and like we're being hired by couples who obviously don't have a big budget and they're willing to take a risk on someone who's like brand new to the industry. And so that those were our first gigs, and we were just like cutting our teeth, right? Like just learning how weddings work, learning
Mhm.
our craft. It wasn't until we kind of got the opportunity to start spending our winters in New Zealand that we started kind of taking this travel thing more seriously. So for about 6 years, we would spend a few months in New Zealand every winter shooting local New Zealand weddings. And that sort of like spawned a whole identity in our company as sort of destination world traveling photographers. And we got to kind of travel and shoot all around the world from those opportunities. So that was like initially what we were doing. I mean, we really were not making money for many years. Like every dollar we made just went right back into the business.
Mhm.
And it was all about just finding our own voice, creating, a reputation with our company. And, I'd like, there was, we're very lucky that it all worked out. At the time, this was not like some stroke of genius master plan that we had. Definitely whenever I like talk about our business and coach people and mentor sessions and stuff I want to make it abundantly clear we had no idea what we were doing. um, Looking back on it now 15 years in, I can easily go through of like all the good things and bad things we did and tell you what worked and what didn't. But at the time we were just having fun, taking as many wedding jobs as we could, traveling as much as we could. So yeah, that was kind of the formative years of our company.
How did you guys get involved? Like, what was the New Zealand of it all? Was that just like per chance you loved New Zealand? Like, how did you start like getting there
No,
and finding work there?
other than watching Lord of the Rings as a kid, I couldn't have told you the first thing about New Zealand at that time. We met a lovely couple, Cy and Sophie of Bailey and Moore, who are really just world class wedding photographers, and we were in a similar career path. Possibly they had been shooting a little longer than us. But they would come to New York and shoot some weddings every now and then in their winter, our summer. And so they just reached out. They're like, "Hey, we like your work. Would you want to grab a coffee?" And so we kind of just became friends with them that first summer, and they offered to like help us get our first few weddings in New Zealand. And so that was the kind of spawn of it all, was like
Wait, that's so
them
cute.
just kind of wanting to do like inquiry trading.
Hmm.
That used to be more of a thing, I think. I don't know if it's like quite the same now, but it really felt back then that there was like this community of travel wedding photographers that we were
Hmm.
part of, that we really like looked out for each other. It wasn't just like, yeah, I'll send you some leads. Like there was like a much more like pinpointed helping of each other get bookings.
Um,
And we all, for a long time up until COVID or a little before COVID, um, we all were just traveling a lot and helping each other get bookings and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the first one. And then kind of once we started shooting in New Zealand, that we became we became known by some planners and venues and other couples that we were going to be going there in the winters. New Zealand famously is like everyone is connected by 2 degrees of separation. It's a
mm,
very small country. Everyone
mhm.
knows everyone. That's not like a metaphorical statement. I like really so many people know each other in New Zealand. It's kind of crazy. So word of mouth, it works really well there in terms of like, oh yeah, we use like Ryan and Heidi, and then like, okay, now they book us, and then another one comes in, and um, yeah, so that was kind of how it all got going.
That's so fun. And I love talking to people who started their career pre-social media being as big as it is now. I started 10 years ago, so it was like kind of on the cusp. Like social media was like picking up. It wasn't as big as it is
Hmm.
now, but I just love hearing about how the industry worked and like
Yeah,
hearing other people's stories about like how we were navigating things because it really was so different. I know that you mentioned there was a big shift or rebrand. I think you said 4 years in. Was it 4 years into the business?
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about
yeah,
that.
yeah. Very soon in, we I really don't know why we did this so soon. I suppose there were enough leads coming in that we were able to do this, but we built what was called Ryan and Heidi Studio. That was the name of it. And we had two other photographers and two other videographers on the team. All four of those people had their own businesses and did their own bookings. And we weren't booking like a ton of studio work, but it would be, if I had to guess, maybe an extra 20 to 30 total jobs between those four people. So they're,
Mhm.
a handful of jobs each. It wasn't anything crazy. Um, there was, I think, as we started, as we were doing that, there was a couple moments of like, maybe a couple had reached out to us and to that shooter, and we were like pitching that same person, and there was like kind of some confusion from the client side. There was definitely some, I think we saw a little bit of writing on the wall where there was like different directions that each person wanted to go with the studio. And so I think like we all got together, had like a little just hangout party at our place. um, and I just kind of laid it out for everyone like, hey, there's sort of like two ways we can go with this. Either everyone puts down their own company branding, including ours, and we just all come together as a collective and really like spearhead a new thing
Mhm.
and kind of double down on what we had. Or we say it was good while it lasted. We're all friends, and let's just remain to be friends, and we can all
Mhm.
just be like colleagues and not be in a studio together. Um, I think we realized that the latter of that was the better option. Just that we all were such close friends, and we are still good friends with a couple of those people, very very close with those people, and so I think looking back, it was good because like everyone kind of had their own path, and it allowed Heidi and I to reset and really figure out what we wanted. And that's where Forge in the North was born, which was this idea of getting our names off of the studio,
Mhm.
building something that could be like a team of photo and video shooters that wasn't reliant necessarily just on Heidi and I, and that we were all kind of on an equal playing field. It wasn't like an associate, primary shooter, associate shooter. Like there was no sort of tiers involved, and that was our vision at the time, and so that's what we started to build in 2014.
How did it evolve from there? Like when you guys first made that decision, did you immediately bring people on? Did you have people in mind? Or like how did you even start onboarding that? Because that's so intimidating to be like, let's start a business and bring in other
Yeah,
people.
when we were first formulating Forge in the North, we didn't really have people in mind, like so on deck. There was a couple. So one guy who's still with us, Bennett, on our team, he does video. He had been shooting photo and video with us, like second shooting since our very first weddings, really. Like he's literally been with us for 15 years. And then a studio shooter with us since 2014 when we started Forge in the North. Um, he does both photo and video, but we saw that his wedding video work seemed to be special, and just his personality. I think there was just a match with him doing wedding video, and we really encouraged him to like pursue that. And he was fresh out of getting an MFA in photography, and was like, yeah, I'm down. Like, sure, sounds good. I'll shoot some weddings. Around that same time, we had a mentor session. We were hired to do like a mentor session with Paul, who's still on our team.
Mhm.
And he was very young. He was like, yeah, just a couple of years out of high school.
Mhm.
Um, and he was like considering med school, and he wanted to, but I think he wanted to shoot some weddings. And I mean, essentially, like I told him over time through some emails after the mentor session that maybe you should not be a doctor because you're really a talented photographer. And yeah, he took me on. He took me up on that. Moved to New York, went to SVA, the same school Ben did, for MFA in photography, and when he did that, I was like, oh, I guess we'll help you get some we'll help you get some work. And so that's kind of how he was brought in. Um, and it was kind of the four of us there for like five. We didn't add anyone else to the team aside from a studio manager for about 5 years after that. So there's sort of like two, Paul and Ben were a photo video duo. Heidi and I were a photo and video duo. So it's sort of this perfect, like we have two teams of two.
Mhm.
And they did a lot of travel work and destination work as well. So yeah, we just rode that out for a long time. And it was, yeah, it was really fun. It was just sort of like a very tight knit little team we had.
I love that. Did you guys find that you brought in more team members to match an inquiry demand and like a job demand, or was it more like you brought them on and then were like, time to find
Yeah.
jobs for these people?
Um, Definitely the former of what you just said. So,
Mm.
like, I'm a big believer in before anyone starts to think about associates or building out a studio or having a team, that they have to get their lead generation up. Like, you have to be like drowning in inquiries before you really consider bringing someone on. There's some caveats to that. Not always you have to be drowning, but you absolutely have to have a surplus of leads. As soon as you go through all the effort, upfront effort of bringing that person in, finding the person, getting them onboarded with the pricing, their portfolio, like all the stuff, you want to be able to book them on jobs like pretty much right away. So you don't want to be kind of looking for work ideally. But it was around 2018, 2019, the leads we were getting in, we would get at that time we were getting 600 to 700 inquiries a year, but we were only booking max 100 between the four of us.
Hmm.
So like Heidi and I could do we well at that time, crazy enough, like we were doing about 50 weddings a year because of our New Zealand season. So like we never had an off season. It was just like 40
That is
40
so
weddings in
many
the New York.
weddings.
I know, it was fucking nuts. It's like 40 weddings in the New York market, and a lot of those were photo and video, which is also gnarly. So the editing was insane. But 40 in the New York market, about 10 in New Zealand, and just like rinse and repeat for like 6 years. Um, Paul and Ben could each handle maybe 25, 30 each. So yeah, we were maxing out as a studio at like, yeah, maybe 100 um, bookings. So we were leaving, 500, 600 inquiries on the table. Um, like if there's any, probably one of the bigger, I guess like moves we made at that point was there's sort of two options you can go down when that's the case. One is you raise your prices, like maybe a lot, right? You are going to not book the same clients, and maybe you'll book even a little less. But if you have that many inquiries coming in, chances are enough of those will book, enough of those will stick, and you'll stay busy and you're making more money and blah, blah, blah. And we can talk more about like going down that route. The other route, and this is kind of what we did, is I saw at the time like the types of clients and weddings that we wanted were not at those higher price points. We really loved the clientele we had. And in fact, we were starting to maybe price ourselves out of that ideal clientele just by
Mm.
slowly creeping up, not by going to these big price jumps. But I just saw that the vast majority of bookings were actually at a lower price point. So we decided to open up a sister company called After It All. And that is sort of a like Forge in the North light. And we have studio shooters over there where they just do the shooting and we handle the editing, versus the Forge in the North model is that the studio shooters are handling everything from like beginning to end, obviously aside from contracts, payments, invoicing. Like we handle the admin, but
Mhm.
they do all the pre-wedding talks. They obviously shoot the wedding, they do the editing, all of that kind of stuff. On the After It All side, it's a little bit more of that traditional studio model where it's like a studio shooter, and then Heidi and I handle the editing. And so because we were doing the editing, we actually were able to make a bigger profit margin on the lower price point weddings. And we launched that in 2019, and it was like immediate success. Like we couldn't believe how fast things were booked. Like it was just like a lot of bookings immediately. Like the demand was so huge, and it kind of confirmed the hunch I had that like in at the time, you know, this is like we're talking in the New York City market, we're talking in like the 3 to 4 thousand price point.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I felt the vast majority of bookings were happening. Heidi and I at that time were maybe like if I remember correctly, probably starting at like 5K. That would be
Mm-hmm.
like maybe the smallest booking we would do. Um, and so yeah, those 3 to 4 thousand dollar bookings really just kind of flew off the shelves. And we have currently we have 6 shooters on the
Mm-hmm.
After It All team. 2 are video, 4 are photo, and there's a little bit more of a turnover with that team. And we kind of knew that because this isn't a full-time income for them. It's really a
Mm-hmm.
part-time income. Whereas like the Forge and the North shooters, this is like their bread and butter. This is their full-time job. They're all making 6 figures. Like this is it for them. Whereas After It All is like we had, you know, someone who was doing like commercial work and just wanted a few weddings. We had someone that was in school and wanted to make money on the side while in school. So like everyone had kind of a different reason on the
Mm-hmm.
After It All side. But yeah, that's basically how we have both of those studios set up.
Are you still like is your pricing model still similar or have you priced out of that original window that you kind of started within?
Um, I would say like the After It All pricing, I mean, it's crept up over the years, but if I had to guess, it's probably just barely keeping up with inflation. So it's
Mhm.
basically in that same pocket
Okay.
that it originally was, which is, I think, probably always where we're going to be.
Hmm.
The whole idea was like instead of going high, going low, and going after the quantity of bookings that there could be at that
Hmm.
lower price point. And as you price yourself higher, there's just fewer and fewer jobs for you. And
Hmm.
all of your competitors are likely trying to do that same thing. And
Hmm.
so I don't know. I just saw that as an equation that didn't seem to make sense long term in
Hmm.
terms of like converting these extra leads we had. So Paul on our team now is higher priced. He takes fewer bookings than us. And so just a simple supply demand issue with him is like he's now a little bit higher priced than us. And he probably shoots, you know, more of the luxury type events or people with larger budgets. But no, the After It All shooters are still kind of right in that sweet spot. It's a very competitive price.
Yeah. No, that's,
Yeah.
are you guys still personally doing the editing or have you come up with systems to
Yeah.
like outsource that as well?
We've, you know, over the years, we've done different things. Like we've used to edit everything ourselves, and we had some editors who we hired locally to like come into our office and like edit alongside us. We had
Hmm.
remote editors. We've used like companies to edit. Now we are like pretty much fully head in on Imagine AI. So that's
Cool.
what we use for, you know, and really all that means is like all these AIs are just like better presets, right?
Hmm.
Like they're just presets 2.0. Like they're not the end. You're never going to have a AI go straight to client. At least I
Hmm.
don't ever think that's possible because at the end of the day, no matter what, I still have to look at each image one at a time. I
Hmm.
need to know what gets delivered. So I don't see any way around that. But
Hmm.
um, Heidi does most of the After It All editing. I do most of our Forge of the North work, like the work that we shoot. And so that's kind of how that's how we divvy it up.
So what is like, I have so many questions because I didn't even know about After All. I like literally didn't know that
Not many
existed.
people do. It's like we don't really advertise it, and like the
Hmm.
main way, at least for a few years, the main way it got bookings was just a sales funnel from Forge in the North. So
Mm.
if we were, you know, the two main problems that Forge in the North had to solve at that point was or sorry, the two main reasons clients didn't book us at that point with Forge in the North were either we were too expensive or we were already booked.
Hmm.
And so a lower price studio with additional shooters solves both those problems. And
Hmm.
so essentially people reach out. If we're already booked, we can say, hey, we have this other studio. Here's the deal. Here's how it works. Or if they don't respond right away, or they tell us we're out of their budget, that's another way we go right over to over to After It All with that couple. So um, yeah, I think people who have those lower budgets are super pumped when they find out, wait a second, I love this company. Okay, maybe we can't afford Paul, but like Ryan and Heidi do all the editing. We kind of get that secret sauce with
Mhm.
the editing, and like we get to work with them and they have good reputation. They came recommended, blah, blah, blah. Right. So like that's a great sort of like, there's a lot of reasons we're giving those couples to book with After It All. Yeah. What did you ask again? I'm just
No,
rambling so
I
much. I'm
just said I
sorry.
have so many questions, which I no, I like want to hear all the information. How many bookings slash weddings would you say that you guys are taking now with After It All versus Fortune and North? Like, what does that workflow look like now and that balance?
So, I mean, Heidi and I are pulling back a little bit, but we've historically shot more than anyone else on the team. We've, you know, last year we booked last year Heidi and I shot 35 weddings,
Mhm.
and that was our lowest season ever, aside from
Wow.
2020. Like, well,
Mhm.
obviously, obviously don't count COVID, but in terms of like our normal seasons, that was like our lowest season ever. I think we'd probably notch that back to somewhere in the 25 to 30 range right now.
Mhm.
Um, that would probably be ideal. After It All, it's right now it's going through a bit of like a new turnover with shooters. So we lost a couple shooters, like one moved, actually two moved away.
Mhm.
Another is now like pursuing her kind of full-time career. So we've kind of like lost some people, and we've onboarded some new shooters. But like in 2023, which was a busy year for everyone, we did
Mhm.
like 180 some weddings total. Like that's across 10 people, 10
Okay.
total shooters. So yeah, it was like 180. That was a lot.
That is a lot.
That felt busy. We're happy to have done it, but I don't think it's something we want to repeat. And 2019 was a big year as well. I think like ideally we're looking at somewhere between 100 and 140 would be like a nice sweet
Mhm.
spot for us with that many people. I don't think I just don't think we want to have that work-life balance. I think we need to reclaim some of our time, and yeah, so that's probably where it's at.
Absolutely. Would you, again, I'm like, let me prioritize questions because I have so many. I think the first thing, one, this is so impressive. Like, congratulations to both you and Heidi. Like, this is
Oh, thanks.
such a amazing feat and business model to pull off. And I think a lot of people listening will have this question, which I also have, which is like, where are you getting this many inquiries? Like saying
Yeah.
600 inquiries a year, I'm like, that's crazy. That's so many inquiries. Like, obviously, you have been
Yeah.
in business for a very long time, which comes with a referral network that is very lucrative, I'm sure. But, like, do you have
Mhm.
specific things that you guys have always prioritized or practiced that has been especially fruitful for you?
It's really morphed over the years,
Mhm.
which I'm sure that's the case for most businesses that have been in business for 15 years. As you said, like when we started I mean, Facebook was a thing. I remember we did post stuff to Facebook, like I'm talking about our very first weddings, and people booked us off Facebook, which is super cool. I don't really think we've gotten Facebook inquiries for a very, very, very long time. Even out of like the 600, like I don't even think there's really many that come in from Facebook anymore. Um, Obviously, Instagram's kind of taken that spot for us. So we did build an Instagram presence, and that just I think we're so lucky as photographers that all the other vendors post our work for us all the time. And so if you think about, when even it was like Heidi and I, and then Paul and Ben, we're doubling the amount of bookings we can do because we have these extra team members. And then since then, we've added the studio and additional shooters to Forge in the North. There's just so much work going out the door
Mhm.
and just going everywhere, all over social media, that we don't even have to post. Like if you look at our Instagram in the past 3 years, we've made, I would guess, less than 20 posts in 3 years.
Oh my
Part of
God.
that is that we just haven't prioritized it. I would love to post more. There's a lot of new work I would love to share from everyone, but we get tagged and posted all the time by so many vendors that it just became a thing where it's like, it doesn't make sense for me to spend this much time on it if all these people are doing it for us. So we're very generous with our work, getting it out there, sharing it. This probably goes without saying, but for anyone listening and wondering, always share the work for free. Just be that really good partner and collaborator for someone else. That kind of karma is so huge in this industry. Just being a good person to work with, like helping each other out. Even if it's like a vendor that's like running an ad in a magazine and they're like, how much would you want? Don't charge them for it. I mean, you could, sure, you could make
Mhm.
$400 on a license, I'm sure, but like, is that $400 that helpful for you? Is that
Mhm.
really going to like change your life? Because like what's going to change your business is them remembering how awesome you were to work with when they needed a photo and they needed help. And they're just another small business. Like
Mhm.
a lot of these florists and planners, they don't have like buco dollars thrown around for their marketing. Like they're just trying to get by just like we are. But yeah, but back to like the inquiries. I mean, in the beginning, I would say like the travel work was very trendy. We were establishing, our own voice in the industry that seemed to be compelling to enough people that there was a lot of publications and blog posts. I remember at the time just getting blogged was massive. Like if you had a wedding in 2015 on green wedding shoes, you would get so many leads from that. Like now, so many of these publications and these blogs, you get posted uh, at 9 a.m. in the morning. By 1 p.m. that same day, you're like on the sixth page. No one's seen it. It's really changed so much. Unfortunately, I think for the vendors, not for the better. It's always
Mhm.
nice to show it off and have the accolade, but like really what we need is that exposure, and it's just so much noisier now, I think,
Mhm.
in that space. We also had a lot of like paid vendor listings on these sites. We
Mhm.
never did like the big ones, the Knot or Wedding Wire or Zola.
Mhm.
We never did any of those. These were a lot more affordable. So that was, we're talking $100 to $500 a year to be posted on the green wedding shoes vendor list. We're still part of a couple that are more affordable, but honestly, it's
Mhm.
not like the lead generation is really just not there anymore. I hate to say it, is that these publications helped us out so much early on, but really for like photographers now looking at this stuff, I can't really see how there's just so many people on these systems and it's very, very difficult to stand out. A lot of these people will just sort of a lot of couples will send 10 emails out to 10 people, sort of price shop it. These are probably not the clients you want to go after long term.
Mhm.
It's not really a great way to run your marketing or run your lead generation. Um, over the years, so I'm just trying to get to like big picture ideas. Over the years, we shifted more to uh, focusing on like planner relationships
Mhm.
and venue vendor recommendations. So
Mhm.
we realized once we started having kids, once we started kind of settling down in New York, this was like 2018, 2019. Um, we didn't really want to travel the world indefinitely. Like it was good, as fun as that is. I think we just wanted to do those every now and then. And so it was like, how do we book more in Brooklyn? How do we book more in New York? And one very clear pathway to that was getting on the venue recommended vendor list. Usually it's like a handful of vendors per category. And so we pursued a lot of those relationships really hard. And that doesn't mean cold emailing these places. Um, rarely did we ever do that. Only if it was like maybe a new venue or something, but it was always with the attitude of how can we help you? Here are some photos. What do you need? Can I edit a video for you? Do you need some headshots for your staff? Do you need some architectural interiors of your space?
Mm.
Like put us to work. Let us help you. That was always our attitude going in. And again, just going back to the karma thing, it's just really paid a lot of dividends back.
Mm.
I cannot stress enough how valuable it is just to be a good person in this industry, someone who's that easy photographer to work with, who's going to help you out. When that planner reaches out with a couple that has a tighter budget, you offer that discount. You
Mm.
be the hero in those situations because you know on the next one, they're going to give you that big package that doesn't need the discount.
Mm.
Those are the kinds of things that really go a long way, in my opinion. It None of these are fast fixes. So like everything we've done has been such like a building of the foundation that has kind of gotten us to where we are now, which is like in a very stable business environment for like our leads and bookings. Um, so yeah, so many of these things just take a lot of time and investment, and there's no. I don't really believe in the really quick, short term fixes. I think you have to be playing a long game with a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's like, I mean, we're seeing it right now with TikTok being taken down. Like, that is a platform that thousands of creatives have poured so much heart and time and energy into,
Yeah,
and now it's going to be gone, and that's going to have huge implications, obviously for small businesses and the economy as a whole. But it's such a testament to the fact that like we don't really own a lot of these online
yeah,
spaces. Like they can disappear at any
yeah,
point, but people will always be there. Like relationships
yep,
will always exist. Your reputation within the industry and without is always going to be the thing that stands the test of time. And so even
yeah,
if it's not the quickest fix, if you are in this for the long haul and you're in this for the longevity, like that is the thing worth pursuing. Absolutely. So I think that's such an amazing testament too to go in with service in mind. Yeah, I love the idea of reaching
yeah.
out to venues too, even about being like, do you need headshots? Do you need like what can we
Mm-hmm.
do to help you out and build a
Yeah.
relationship?
And just to piggyback on that, something you kind of just touched on is like not putting all your eggs in one basket. If there is any kind of genius move we made in terms of like the marketing and to get the inquiries, is that we always spread ourselves across many different ways and avenues of getting those inquiries.
Hmm.
That one allows you to still do okay when one of those falls short. So for us, it was like the publications, the blogs, that kind of thing, just kind of just fell disappeared.
Yeah, gone.
Um, Gone. We ramped up social media. We ramped up our planner relationships. Um, but I think spreading yourself out like that is really the best thing. I mean, I've heard of success stories with like people going all in on like the Knot and some of these places where there's very pricey, like very pricey listing models that they have, and I have heard some people do well with that, and so it can work. My biggest fear with that again is like one thing changes with the Knot, and now your business could just collapse. Like it's just built on a house of cards. So
Mhm.
that's my biggest worry with that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's, yeah, you truly never know. I mean, the
Never
algorithm on
know.
Instagram, I think, yeah, was like the biggest and first big shift we saw with that. And then, yeah, now we have TikTok. We've had a million things in between. But yeah, you never
Yep.
know. So putting your eggs in one basket entirely is incredibly dangerous. So
Yes.
thank you for the reminder that we need to
Yeah.
be pursuing those things. And I thank you so much for giving like actionable things that people can do because I think that's one thing I've
Yeah.
found people get really overwhelmed with when you're like, reach out to vendors, like make relationships. They're like, okay, cold DM, like cold email. And it's like, well, no, like we want to
Yeah.
like build an actual genuine relationship that has give and take. So as you
Yeah.
guys go into 2025, which is crazy, I like that's a whole different conversation. Like, don't even know how we're here, but that's all right.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
guys foreseeing for your businesses? Do you have new goals? Are you really relishing in the stability of it? Like, what are you guys kind of doing right now in the businesses?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit. There's a restructuring happening with After It All. So we have like a couple new shooters that are in a portfolio building sort of mode. So that's going to be a slow first year or two. And,
Mhm.
I think we're looking at them being more ramped in full time in a few years. So After All, it's kind of going through its own shifts. For Forge in the North, stability is a big one. Like I think we all just want like a good, solidly booked season, but nothing too crazy.
Mhm.
Probably like everyone on the team would want somewhere in the 20 to 30 range.
Mhm.
And so I think it's like the quality of those leads. Our pricing is going up. Like there's no question about it. So like we are pricing ourselves out of maybe some of the original clients we used to book.
Mhm.
But I think like the quality of the bookings is such a huge one. Like working with planners, we love working at venues we love to work at. Not having like crazy travel time to get to a lot of these weddings. I think all of us we've traveled a lot in our careers, and maybe it's fun to do like one a year, but like generally speaking, I think we want to shoot local, close to home. So like honing in a lot more on the quality of those leads. And like, yeah, I think for Heidi and I, it's tricky. Like our lives are changing very quickly. We have three kids under the age of 6. So it's chaotic here
Yeah.
and there's a lot of life stuff happening for us and we don't want to miss out on a lot of that life stuff, so
Mhm.
I think we're finding our own new rhythm. For Heidi and I personally, like we've not personally but for Heidi and I in the business,
Mhm.
we've focused a lot more now on booking only photo and video jobs combined. uh,
Mm.
in the past we would do like our years would be maybe one third photo, one third video only, and one third photo and video. Like me and you met when we
Mhm.
were just doing a video job.
Mhm.
And so like we meet a lot of great photographers that way. I will say that is one little extra advantage we have in terms of lead generation. Just going back to that prior conversation,
Mm.
we interface with a lot of photographers who recommend us. And so I think because we're photographers, we totally understand what the photographer is trying to do. And a lot of the things we try to do when we're shooting video is helpful for the photographer. And so there's not like maybe a normal tension, or
Mhm.
not normal, but sometimes, as we all know, there can be tension between photo and video. But that really, in my opinion, never exists when we get to shoot with photographers. So that is like a nice little thing we have that a lot of photographers recommend us for video, and that's
Mhm.
great. Um, but yeah, so I think Heidi and I like booking more photo and video jobs together. So we're shooting less weddings, less clients to interact with, just a little simpler. And yeah, maybe our schedules are a little bit more like concise rather than like, okay, Heidi's got a photo job tomorrow and I got a video job today. And it's just like a little more
Mhm.
chaotic that way with the lifestyle situation we're in right now. So yeah, that's kind of our 2025. Nothing crazy, but just kind of doing the same old stuff. And honestly, just having fun with it and enjoying it. Like over the years, I've really fell more in love with this job.
I
It's
love
crazy to
that.
say. Like I think so many people starting out, I'd be curious if you had the same experience, but like so many people starting out view weddings as a stepping stone to commercial work or a stepping
Mhm.
stone to something else, or it's just a
Mhm.
side thing temporarily. Um, I had that feeling a little bit because I was doing a lot of
Mhm.
commercial directing at the time. And I thought, okay, weddings are a good way to make money while I'm building a commercial directing
Mhm.
career. But man, I've just fallen so much more in love with this job. Like it is so fun, and our work-life balance and control over our time is second to none. Like we have it
Truly.
so good compared to like a lot of people who are commuting into the city every day, grinding it out like 8 to 6 p.m. Like it's it's crazy for so many people, and we get to dictate. Heidi and I like we'll work a little bit during the day, but some nights we'll have dinner, open a bottle of wine, and just sit here and edit and chat or listen to a podcast or something. Like, what an amazing work environment we get to have sometimes. And then, let alone the shooting of people like on the best days of their lives, getting to like photograph like these fun parties. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I think 2025 is just a doubling down of that spirit, I guess.
I love that. I think that's the like best way to go into it. And I think too, I took a break for a few years. I got divorced right as 2020 happened, and that combo, I was like, let's take a minute. Like, let's take a
That's a
beat.
rough combo. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, we'll take a break for a second. And I'm really glad I did. And I was very like, I will go back to weddings when I feel completely called to them because I'm like, I'm sure
Yeah.
you share the sentiment. Like, I always tell people when they're thinking about getting into weddings, I'm like, don't do it unless you are so ridiculously in love with weddings. Like, it is not for
Yeah.
everyone. Like, you've really got to
Yeah.
love it. And it's been so fun to have that passion and that love like come back really organically because it is the best job ever, truly.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
love yapping about it to people, and then I feel bad if they're in corporate jobs they hate. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have the best
Yeah.
job in the world. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. You have to
literally
kind of
am.
keep it on the down low.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I make art out of people being in love and I make my own schedule. That's crazy. Like,
Yep.
we're so lucky. It's such a beautiful job. And I think it's
Yes.
really admirable and beautiful that you guys have been able to build something so long-standing and consistent and stable. Because I think that is, for those of us that like do want to do this long term, that is the dream, is to like
Yeah.
have that stability within the self-employment realm, which can be hard to find sometimes. So
Yeah.
thank you for coming on and sharing all of this
Yeah.
with us. It's been amazing to
Uh,
like learn more about your guys' story.
Oh my God. Thank you for like having me. And it's so good to like see you and catch up a little bit. And I hope we like bump into each other at a wedding soon
No, I
or in
know.
Chicago or something
Oh
when
my
I'm
gosh,
visiting back home.
please. Yeah, I know. I'm like, next time you guys are in Chicago, please let me know. And vice versa. I'll
Definitely.
let you know when I'm in the city. I'm over there all the time. But we
Definitely.
will obviously link everything in the show notes for everyone to find you guys online. But can you tell us a little bit about like your handles, website, where people can find you in your online spaces?
Yeah, I mean, like, our Instagram is just like at Forge in the North, website, forgeinthenorth.com. You know, I would say like the thing that we're focusing on mostly now is we do a lot of like one-on-one mentor sessions with photographers who are looking to expand their team or like add on studio shooters. I think that's really been the lane of expertise that we've kind of dove in headfirst on. I'll always happy to talk to like up and comer photographers or people starting their business, but mostly our focus has been doing like check-in, multiple mentor session, kind of coaching programs with
Love.
people on like, yeah, building a studio, the different models you can have with that, and how to go about finding people, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that if anyone is listening and they're interested in that, please feel free to reach out. But other than that, I mean, Instagram and website, we're pretty simple these days. Not we never got a TikTok.
Love that for
Um,
you.
yeah, I don't. I mean, it's I've nothing against it. I think it's like I've heard great things from so many people about like lead generation. Something tells me maybe it's gonna come back in some form. Someone's gonna buy it. It's somehow gonna shift. I don't know if it's like dead. I'd be so shocked. It's so hard to believe that something that big would just be dead unless it's like,
I'm
I don't
still
know.
not fully convinced. Like, I know we're like 3 days away, but I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's literally no way.
Something's going to change, or even if it does get shut down, like maybe eventually someone buys it or they sell off that piece of it. I haven't been following it too closely, but I don't know. Something tells me like people aren't totally out of luck on that platform, but
Yeah, I'm like,
we'll see.
it's the biggest platform I think we have now. Like, I want to say it's bigger than Instagram and Facebook too. So I'm like, there's
Yeah,
just no way. It's so,
yeah,
I'm not going to believe it until I actually see it with my own eyes, is my thing.
yeah.
So we'll find
Same,
out. But
same.
thank you so much for coming, Ryan. It was so nice to see you again. Thank you for sharing so much knowledge and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Eden.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.